guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with a very exciting video, and that is my favorite romances that I read in 2020. Not all of these released in 2020. A good majority of them did actually, though, release in 2020, and I absolutely adored them. I have my top 11, and then I have about 6 that are honorable mentions that I will just run through real quick, and then I'll get to my top 11 books I read this year. My honorable mentions include The Forbidden Man by Karina Halley, Dear Ava by Elsa Madden Mills, Queen Move by Kennedy Ryan, An Extraordinary Union by Alyssa Cole, 9 Rules to Break, One Romancing a Rake by Sarah McLean, and Both Zenny and Rafe by Rebecca Weatherspoon. Alright, so now I'm going to get into my top 11. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the synopsis and why I loved it so much. These are not in any particular order. I just pulled them off my shelves when I had my list, so this is how I grabbed them. The first one is going to be the Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. The main reason is because of Jason. He is just the most amazing hero ever, who unapologetically is so into our heroine. So this is about Sloane, and there's trigger warnings for death of a loved one. Sloane loses her husband or fiance. I don't remember where they were in the status of their relationship, but Sloane is the best friend of the character from The Friend Zone, which is book 1 in here, and Sloane loses her significant other at the end of that book, and then in this one she is still very much grieving over what happened. She finds a dog roaming around the streets and she decides to take it home. Called the owner, no one answered. She keeps this dog for at least a week, and then the owner finally gets a hold of her, and it is Jason. He is a musician touring in Australia, and he's like, I'm on tour. Someone was watching my dog for me, and so he's like, I need my dog back. And she's like, I don't know if I trust you with your dog. And they start this like flirty banter texting relationship, so it's an epistolary romance, which I really love. And then about halfway through it does shift tone a little bit, so Jason comes back and they start dating, and there is a lot to do with his being a musician. I know not a lot of people enjoyed that, but I loved this. There were moments where he was like, I just want to be around her. I just want to sit on the couch and just be together. And I just love that about him, how he just loved Sloane so much, loved being around her, wanted to get to know her, and it was adorable. I loved it so much, and I cannot wait for the third book. I got an arc of it, and I'm dying that I have it, so I cannot wait to read more from Abby Jimenez. The next one, you guys know, it's no surprise. That is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. This one, Zafir. Again, all of these have like the most amazing men in them that I'm swooning over and I need in my life. For me, please. This one is Danny and Zafir, and they work together kind of. So Danny is a professor of sorts. I think she's like working on a degree, and so she does teach classes, and Zafir is the security guard there. I love, he's just such a cinnamon roll. He like brings granola bars to work so that he can give them to Danny because he knows that she won't do it for herself. She's a little bit absent-minded in that sense when it comes to like taking care of herself, and so he's like, hey, here's your breakfast, and like, I love that so much. And what happens is that there is an emergency that's fake, so it's like a drill, and Danny didn't know that. She doesn't check her email. She's a little bit flighty in that sense, and so Zafir ends up rescuing her from an elevator and carries her out, and everybody takes pictures. It goes viral. They decide to fake date because Zafir has this company that helps men be emotional, get rid of toxic masculinity in sports, and I don't remember which, I think it was rugby that he used to play, and it's adorable. And so he needs more attention for his, it's not his company, it's like his charity thing. I'm blanking on the word of what that is, but he needs more attention for it, and it's getting attention, and then they start to actually fall for each other. I love a good fake dating romance. There's so many coming out in 2021 that I'm dying for, but I love myself a cinnamon roll hero. I love the representation we have in here. Zafir also has anxiety, and Danny helps him through that, and I loved it, and I cannot wait for Actor Age Eve Brown, which I also have an e-arc of, which might appear on my top of 2021 list. We shall see, but I cannot get enough of Talia Hibbert. Next, we have Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. This one I loved so much. I talked about it in my most surprising books of 2020, but this one, I don't know why I didn't think I would love it as much as I did. I was excited for this, but I ended up falling head over heels for Marcus. April's our plus size main character. She writes a lot of fan fiction and has a best friend really on her fan fiction site, which is actually Marcus, and she doesn't know it's Marcus. And so they've talked for a long time. They help each other write their fan fictions, and they basically write fan fiction for Game of Thrones. That's what this is kind of inspired by. Marcus is actually an actor on the show, and April ends up posting a picture of herself and goes viral, and it is a cosplay picture, and people make fun of her because of her weight, and Marcus is really intrigued by her, and he is mad about the attention, the negative attention it's getting, and so he asks her out. She says yes. They start dating. It's not perfect from the beginning. Like, their first date isn't amazing, and I just love how realistic that was. But what I loved about this was Marcus's character and his struggle with dyslexia and how that's explored in here. I say this all the time when I talk about this book. I'm getting my master's in literacy. I'm finishing it up in March, and so literacy and reading is something really near and dear to my heart, and I help struggling readers. That's part of my job as an English teacher. 2 of my periods I teach are helping kids reading at like a 4th or 5th grade reading level when they are in 9th or 10th grade. So I can understand the struggle with reading and the animosity for reading and trying to understand how to read, because it's not a natural process that we have in our brains. We have to learn how to read. I'm getting my master's in it. It's just a whole complex thing, and I love how he talks about his struggles with it. His parents were teachers and were awful to him. They were frustrated with him. They didn't know what to do to help him read, and he's found ways. He's a really great writer, so I love that message that even if you have dyslexia and trouble reading, you can still become a great reader. You can become a fabulous writer. He's found out ways that help him read. I loved it. I can go on and on, but I love that aspect of this book. I loved we had a plus size main character, how they found love. I love this. I can't say enough. Then we have Inevitable Conclusions by Christina C. Jones. If I can say that first word correctly. I read like 9 or 10 Christina C. Jones books this year. This was my favorite. It is older characters, so our characters I think are in their late 30s, and they've been best friends since they were like 20, and they're still best friends, but they actually tried dating when they were in their early 20s, and it failed miserably. They were both very immature. They weren't happy together, so they broke up, but they stayed best friends, and every relationship since then has kind of affected each other, and now they're gonna give it another shot, but they're so scared because they don't want to lose their friendship, and they know they've tried it once and it didn't work out. And our heroine is actually like a choreographer for a show, which I think is really fun, and her daughter's a big part in here, and I love this so much. I could not recommend it enough if you like that Friends to Lovers of Second Chance kind of too. It was good. Next, you guys aren't going to be surprised, is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I absolutely love this. There's writers. I love romances about writers. I have another one on here that is a writer romance, and our main character writes romance, and then she sees Gus next door to the house she's staying at because it is her dad's beach house, and she is really in a rut because her dad passed away, and she realized her dad isn't the man she thought he was, particularly with the romance with her mom, which has inspired her to write romance, and so she's really struggling. There's a lot of grief in here, so trigger warnings for that. Gus is also writing a cult book. He writes literary fiction, and so there are trigger warnings for cults too, and suicide discussion, because I think it was a suicide cult that they ended up investigating for this book, but they challenge each other to swap genres and go on writing dates together. So they go like to a carnival together, and then they go to a cult, and it's really cool. I loved their whole writing aspect. I love that they were neighbors. I love that it was kind of enemies to lovers and small town kind of, and it was just so good. I loved every second of this book. I couldn't recommend it enough. Definitely a favorite, and I cannot wait for her second book. I've requested it on NetGalley, but we'll see if I get it. I do have 2 crossovers with my favorite historical romances of 2020 because these are in the top of the ones that I've read. This one actually I only gave 4 stars because of a consent issue that I didn't appreciate, but the rest of this book just blew me out of the water, and that is Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. This is a very dark romance. It is a pirate historical romance, and our main character is a pirate. She's a pirate captain. She kind of inherited it from her father, but she has a couple of things going on with a couple of guys. We get the past where she's growing up and she's supposed to be a respectable lady, and then she becomes a pirate, and then we get the present day where she's been married to a guy but she hasn't seen him for a while, and he comes back and they play games with each other, and then this Commodore named Ashley is actually on the hunt for them because he wants to kill them because he's a pirate hunter, and she ends up getting kidnapped by Ashley, and they kind of fall for each other too, so it's a love triangle. And there is a scene that I didn't really appreciate between her and Ashley because this is a very dark romance. She does get beat up a lot. She does get assaulted. There's a scene that turned non-consensual in here that I didn't appreciate, but other than that, this was so good. I couldn't recommend it enough. If you like that dark romance, read this book. Next is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This book has been getting like blown up this year. I feel like when it first came out, it wasn't hugely popular, but now everyone's talking about it. Book 2's already come out, and it's amazing. I love this book so much. This is a fantasy romance, and book 2 is not on this list because I was not a fan of the slowness of that book and how there's way too much world building, and we need book 3 now. But this one, our main character Poppy is a maiden, and so she can't show her face to anybody. She's waiting for this like ascension. She has to follow all these protocols and rules, and she has to just like be perfect and pure and innocent, and she meets this guard in the beginning and they kind of have a heated moment together, and then if she figures out that he is actually her new guard personally for her, and things go from there. So it's kind of forbidden. It's very fantasy heavy, which I loved about this. There's a lot of unknowns in here. There's like vampires and werewolves, and the ending's great. And I'm dying for book 3 because book 2 was really a bridge book between 1 and 3, where I thought they would arrive in book 2. They don't arrive until the very end of book 2. And I was like, I thought that's what book 2 was supposed to be all about, but it wasn't. But I still love this world. I love this book, and I'm excited for more from Jennifer Armentrout. Then we have Truth or Dare by Danielle Allen. I am such a Danielle Allen fangirl now, even though I've only read one book by her, but this one is a friends to lovers romance. They go to a wedding of their friends because they have like a friend group that have been together since college. Their friend group has a rule that they can't hook up unless they actually like want to pursue a relationship, and so our main character had tried something with one of the people in the group. It didn't really work out, so they broke up, but they always play Truth or Dare together. So it is a couple in the group's wedding, and so they all go and they all play Truth or Dare. They get a little tipsy. She kind of makes out with one of the guys in the group and is like, oh, I never realized that before. And so they realize they kind of like each other, but the bride has this grand plan that that guy is going to get together with her sister because her sister, I think, just got divorced, and she's super upset and just not happy. So she's like, it's gonna be perfect. I'm gonna get married. My sister's gonna get hooked up with someone and we're gonna all be happy. And so our main character has to kind of keep it a secret from her friend, and it's really fun. I love this. It's a destination wedding, friends to lovers, kind of forbidden. Oh, it was so good. Then this one is kind of stretching to call it a romance, but there is a really cute romance in it, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I had a TJ Klune book last year on my list. This year I think he's gonna just come up on every list. This is just adorable. It's fantasy-ish. It's like there's this society where we have kids who have magical abilities, and the most dangerous ones are put into this one house because they're all orphans. Linus is our main character, and he works for like this ministry that oversees all these orphanages, and so he's kind of not happy with his life. I think he's like in his 40s. He's a little pudgy. He doesn't like what he does for a living. He's kind of like in a rut. He has to go to this house and oversee to see if the kids are being taken care of, and they're just adorable. And then he has a romance with the guy who's like running the orphanage, and it is the sweetest, most wholesome thing I've ever seen. All the kids are amazing. We have like Lucifer, we have a gnome, we have a blob, and it's just so good. If you want something that's just gonna make you feel happy, read this, because I already want to reread it. I loved it so much. It was just so nice and sweet, and I couldn't get enough. Then we have The Madness of Lord Ian Mackenzie by Jennifer Ashley. You guys know, if you watch me, I became obsessed with the series, specifically Ian. Ian is on the autism spectrum, and so during this time period they didn't really know what that was, so he's treated very differently and poorly, especially when he was young. So he saw something he wasn't supposed to, and then he was sent off to basically like this prison and treated horribly until his brother finally got a hold of him and helped him get out. And now Ian is an adult, and he doesn't really feel like he can love anybody, but he does like to enjoy physical relationships with women. So he meets Beth, and he's like, I want her. And so Beth is a widow, and she has a little bit more freedoms than normal women do, and they start a relationship, and she basically teaches him he can't be loved. He realizes that he's falling for Beth, and it's the best book ever. I absolutely love this. I really want to reread this one as well. I listened to the first 5 on audio, and I absolutely loved them, so I cannot wait to reread this and meet Ian again. There's a lot of novellas in this world too, so I keep on picking those up and reading them, but I couldn't recommend this enough, and I'm so excited I read this year. And the last book I have is One Hot Italian Summer by Karina Halley. This one is the other writer romance. Our main character is an author, and trigger warning for grief though and death of a loved one, because her co-writer did pass away, and she wrote mysteries with her, and she's deciding to write something on her own, and she wants to write a romance. She can't write it herself. She doesn't know how to write herself, and she's still grieving, so her editor tells her, okay, it's either her editor or her agent, one of them tells her, I have a villa in Italy, go there, soak up the Italian sun, get inspiration. Little does she know there's actually a man and his son staying there, and their meet cute is hilarious, and then she slowly falls for the guy, so does a single dad romance. This guy is off limits though, so it is kind of forbidden as well, and she is starting to write her romance while she stays there, and it is so good. If you want a perfect summer read where it is giving you all of the traveling vibes that you want, you have to pick this up. I absolutely loved it. I cannot wait to pick up more from Karina Halle. I've adored everything she's written that I've read so far, so I need to read more from her, especially her newer releases, but I absolutely love this one and I'm so happy I read it this year. And those are my top romances that I read in 2020. Let me know down below if you read these and what your #1 favorite of 2020 was. I would love to hear. As always, thanks so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.